Hello, this is the third of three videos. This one's going to be really short, and all we're going to do in this video is concentrate on the navigation bar and how to make some edits to that. So here's where we left off with the last video. So we'll go back into Dreamweaver here, and here in my source code, I can look at the where we are with the nav bar. I've got it selected up here, and let's try and deal with some of these issues that you might want to deal with. So for example, the first one would be if you want your navigation bar to center on the page. If we go look at the existing site, it's what's called left align, which is the navigation bar starts over here on the left and then just keeps moving over as you add more buttons to it. But if we want to center it, the way to center it is actually pretty easy. What you do is you just put a div around the whole nav bar and give it the class of container. And we know that a container is usually used to go around the outside of a website. But the container class here in Bootstrap already has built into it that it's going to center everything inside of it. So if we simply use that, we can go ahead and make this work for us. So I've already added the code in to center this, but I've commented it out, which means it's not working. So I'll uncomment it and show you where it goes so you can see how it works. So take a look at this and notice that this is on the left here. The navigation bar buttons are lined up on the left. So what you do is you just go into your code, and for your source code here, you find out where your navigation bar starts. So in this case, we inserted a row, and then we put the navigation bar in it, and then we put the navigation bar inside of a row. So in other words, we inserted a row. The row came with this div right here, which was asking us how many columns we wanted in the row. And of course, we put 12 columns so that it would go all the way across. And then we later added this myNavBar class so we could get specific about what we were doing with the navbar. So really, the navigation bar, essentially starts right here with this div. So if you go right above it and you simply insert a new div, and like I said, I had commented this out. So what I'm going to do is, as I said, just remove my comment. So go ahead and get rid of these little comment brackets here. So in other words, if you just create a new div and give it the class container and start it right after this row div and right before the div that creates the columns for the navbar, and then you go down to where all this ends, which is down here after the navbar, and you can see that I've already put a div container there that I commented out. So if you just add another div down to these ones at the bottom after the navbar, it will close off the div that we just added, the container div that surrounds the navigation bar. So now if we go preview this in Chrome, you can see that the navigation bar is floating in the center there, as opposed to being aligned left. Okay, so that's a way that you can accomplish a centering nav bar. Now you could do the same thing with this header image here. You could surround that header with a div with a class of container, and that would also center that. Okay, so that's one thing we may want to do with our navigation bar is center it. Now another thing we may want to do, each one of these tabs here is a list item in the navigation bar, and of course they can all have background colors. We'll call them buttons or tabs, it's the same thing. And then whichever one is currently selected has its own background color, which is different from the normal colors of the buttons. So we can look at how we would affect this color right here, which is currently this gray color. Now one of the things that will be really helpful to you is if you go in here in the Dreamweaver and you click on certain items that you want information about, it'll pop up these little labels here, and then you can click your mouse on top of the label, and on a Macintosh you can control click on it, and on a PC you can right click on it, the name of that particular style, and then just click go to code. And what that will do is it will take you into your Bootstrap CSS style sheet right to where the code is that's affecting this particular thing. Now I've already done that for this, and I end up somewhere down around here. And what this is it's called a navbar default, navbar nav active A. And so that's a big mouthful, but basically navbar default, navbar nav is the style, the default style for this navbar. Active means that it's the currently selected tab, and A means that it's a link. And so given all that information, the background color is going to be this gray color. So I can go in here and, just for the sake of argument, I can change this to purple so that we can see it change there. Now, of course, when you guys do your colors, what you want to do is delete the existing color that's in there, back your cursor up to right after the colon, and then hit your space bar once, and double click on the color value that comes up, and now you can select any kind of color you want, and it'll become a hexadecimal value. Once you hit your enter button, that color gets dropped in there, and then hopefully at some point during our lives we'll update here. There it is. And this is the way you really want to do colors. As I've said, the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors, all the super common colors like blue, green, red, yellow, gray, black, white, those can be written in as words, but I wouldn't leave them that way. That's just the lazy man's way of getting a color right in there quickly to test something, but eventually you want to move over to the hexadecimal colors because that's how the system works. Okay, so we've made a background color for whatever tab is active. And actually, I am gonna go ahead and I want to select more of a purple because I'm going to use green for something else. So let me go back here, but I'll mix a purple instead of just using my word purple. So there's a purple color, and then if you click up here, it's because my Macintosh is kind of slow, so it's thinking, and now it's displayed the purple in there. Okay, so great. So that is our color for the background of the button for the page that we're currently on. Sometimes it's easy to come up here and click on things, and the appropriate labels will pop up, and you can control click on the name of that label or right click on a PC and go to the code. And sometimes it's actually hard to get it to pop up because there's so many things going on here you don't know quite where to click. So you can also go into your source code over here on your web page, and you can just highlight something like navbar nav, like that. And when you highlight it here, then it will pop up here, and then you can do the same thing, which is go to the code. Notice that I have multiple choices here, so I might have to try both of them. So we'll try the first one, and this actually is where I wanted to go. This is, I wanted to make a background for my navigation bar, and as I said, I've already made one and then just commented it out, so I can go ahead and get rid of these comments here. And you see what that does is it makes the background color of my navigation bar green. And so now I've got the purple color for the active tab, the page that I'm on, and then green backgrounds for everything else. Now, the reason these words aren't showing up is because they're actually there. There's just a super light color that doesn't show up very well on the green. So let me change this to yellow, and now you can see they were like a super light gray, so it's kind of hard to see. But let's go ahead and see what this looks like now in the web browser. Okay, so you can see that I've still got my navigation bar centered, and I've got, the purple and the yellow and everything. All these other colors that are coming into play. This green is the background. It's the body background that we made before. The orange, of course, is the header background. The yellow is the background for this central page area itself that has this content in it. The red is the background for the row where we have the nav bar placed. And so, as I've said, this is the way that I tend to construct websites, is using colors so I can tell what the different sections are, so that when I make changes, I know what I'm dealing with. But of course, you don't want your final website to end up looking like this rainbow, so you can go ahead and customize these colors to whatever you think will work best for you. So we've got our nav bar in there, and we preview it one more time. We can see that it is in fact centered on the page, but there's all this extra space on the nav bar, so these buttons don't actually look centered. Now, even though it might seem like having centered buttons is a really good idea, and you might think you like the way it looks, it's actually kind of a pain, because you have to do all this kind of hacking to get it to work, and then it changes when you're looking at it, in the tablet view. But I'll show you some of what you can do to get it to start working, and then some of the problems, and you can decide on your own if you want to try and center that. I generally don't center the navigation bars. I just have them start over here on the left hand side in the default way that they're set up, because it's really just a lot easier than mucking around with all this. So let's see what we can do and what some of the problems are. So if I go back in here to my code where I've added that container, surrounded my nav bar with that container, the container is as wide as the nav bar, but if I could put some special code in here. I could put what's called inline style, so it's CSS that's added right in line in the line of the HTML, and I could say something like width is 50%, and then I can put my exclamation point and say this is important, so this has to override whatever else is going on. And you can see that the container that surrounds the navigation bar is now 50% of the width of the page. So if I go look at that in Chrome, it's going to make my buttons appear more centered. I could then take my default nav bar and shrink it down so it's smaller, so these kind of appear in the center. But it's problematic, because when you do things like get down here to the tablet view, see how it's stacked up, the buttons stack up on top of each other, and then of course it's going to change to this as soon as you get down a little further, and it's going to be that hamburger menu when you're down here. But look, it's only 50%, so it's not going all the way across. So it's problematic. I don't really recommend this. I don't recommend trying to center your buttons. You can, like I said, you're more than welcome to try, and there's plenty of resources on the internet that can help you establish it in a way that looks good. But it's a lot of work, and it's sort of counterintuitive to the way that the Bootstrap site is set up. Let me show you what I mean by that. So if I go ahead and get rid of the style that I just added, and maybe if we even go back and get rid of this container that we used to center it, so we'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that extra div that we put in so that it's no longer centered. Now it's left aligned again. And you see it's left aligned, and all your buttons will just kind of stack across here. And then it stays looking good in every format. Changes to the hamburger when it gets down to about tablet size, and then stays that way for the phone. So you can see this is a really good clean setup, something people are very used to, and it gives you room to add additional buttons, which you almost always certainly will. Or you can put in, you could leave your search box in there, some social media icons and things. So I highly recommend going with this left aligned menu navigation bar here, because it's infinitely more flexible and looks better than the center one. Okay, so that's about it for this video. Like I said, it's going to be a shorter one than the other ones, and it was really just mainly focused on the navigation bar here. There's more you can do with the navigation bar. You can change the hover colors and change the text, but I'll let you guys investigate that and go ahead and make the kind of tweaks that you want. Please work on taking your mock-up and arranging it so that it will fit into this kind of template, and then cut up the pictures, build this template with help from the videos, and then replace these images with yours, and come in next week with something that I can look at and that we can talk about and get you to the next step. Okay, thanks much.